Okay, without further ado, I'd like to kick off and just give an opening statement here. And just early hours of this morning over my coffee, I found this one from Abraham Lincoln. The best way to predict the future is to create it. And I think many of us in our industry today, in our profession, are sitting on that turning point in our industry, particularly pivoting on the technology side of things. Where do we go? What do we do? What's the work from home? How's it going to impact us? What does the post-COVID world look like? So instead of sitting back and waiting for it to happen, I see all of us as being architects of the new future. So let's share some information, share some ideas, and get into it. This is the basic agenda for this morning. I'd like to introduce you shortly to Francois Duplessis, our sponsor from Callbi Speech Analytics, Deon Scheepers, Hilario, and Corey Springett. So we have three specialists with us today, and each of them brings to this session a lot of experience and vision for the future. We'll then go just into some opening remarks and commentary. Very exciting, we will be launching this morning our Contact Center Technology Survey, a formal research project, and then we'll start addressing some of the questions that have been submitted in the registration process, an open panel discussion, and then the prize award at the end is a 2,500 Rand Axtel headset that has been very graciously donated. And we're going to award that prize to the most interesting or challenging question coming up. So feel free to use the chat line. The chat box is open, so pop your questions into there, and all things being equal, we'll be able to address them going forward. So that said, I'm going to introduce, and I think is Francois online? I don't see him. Don't see him there. Francois, yes, he is. Francois, I've opened your mic. Can you talk to us, please, and welcome our delegates?
Yes, thanks, Rod. Yeah, thank you, everyone, for attending today. Callbi is a new product that we launched last year that can help call centers across the world to gain insights into what's happening within their calls. And we're very happy to take any technical questions or anything someone has, but throughout this webinar, you'll learn more about this product. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you very much. And once again, thanks to Callbi Speech Analytics for sponsoring these webinars. We will be having several follow-up sessions going forward. We'll talk about those a little later this morning. My next guest here I'd like to introduce is Deon Scheepers. Deon is fairly recently out in the world as an independent CX and call center technology consultant. We've worked together for pretty much 15 or 18 years, I would think. Deon, over to you. Would you come in and just give us a very brief background on yourself?
Hi, Rod. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Rod, yeah, thank you very much for introducing me. Yes, I'm embarking on this new independent consultant road, and very excited about it. And specifically at this point in time, I think we're now seeing with COVID and what's happened with COVID in the marketplace that we've seen all kinds of new exciting things happening. But what drives this whole technology revolution based on this webinar topic, I think is the fact that digitization is playing a big role. I recently was looking at a Gartner webinar. Gartner is one of my favorite analyst groups to look at. And what was surprising to me certainly was the fact that Gartner annually do a CIO, CEO survey to understand what their thinking is, where they're moving into the market, what their priorities are, what technology focuses they are. And what I found very interesting is of the top 11 priorities of CIOs and CEOs in this next year, 2020, 2021, and the topics and the technology that I think will be disrupting the business, certainly in the enterprise space, the top, as I said, the top sort of 9 or 7 out of the 11 are specifically related and applicable to the contact center customer experience page, which is very surprising. So things like AI, I'm reading through the list here, AI, automation, digital, machine learning, cloud computing or cloud data analytics, Internet of Things. All of these things are a key factor in CIO, CEOs' minds in this typical enterprise. And you'll see, hopefully through this session and the follow-up webinars, Rod, that you mentioned, how these technologies are applicable and having a major impact in the concept of contact centers and customer experience. And I think that's going to be quite a key thing. Irrespective of what you're looking at, AI is certainly in my mind one of the top topics and one of the major influences in the contact center space, not only because artificial intelligence per se is great technology, but the way that artificial intelligence will be impacting a whole host of things, from workforce management, scheduling, forecasting, the way that artificial intelligence is empowering and working with big data, the way that artificial intelligence is driving analytics, the way that artificial intelligence is helping us with things like bots, and all kinds of things in the marketplace. So I think today, if you're talking about technology and you're talking about contact center and customer experience, you have to get AI as one of the top radars in your marketplace or in your focus area and your strategy. And even that Gartner research said it by far. By far, I think it's way more than any of the other technologies that CIOs and CEOs is looking at, is the fact of artificial intelligence and the way that that is going to assist them in customer experience, in improving organizations, and certainly in making sure that they understand how that can help them grow their business in the greater good.
Great. Deon, thanks. Something you raised there, all of these technologies and the different facets and the functionality, and just so delegates understand, and we'll talk about it a little later, we will be going into the field starting today with the South African Contact Center Technology Survey in partnership with Knowledge Executive. Many of you know Knowledge Executive as a bona fide research organization. And we are hoping out of the survey to get the opinions of CIOs, CTOs across the industry to see exactly where we are going in the South African context. Thank you, Deon. Hilario has been in the consulting space for well over a decade. We've worked together on many, many projects together, and I truly value Hilario's views on this really interesting topic. So, Hilario, a little bit of background on yourself and your views on the contact center CX of the future. Where are we going?
Sure. Thank you very much for having me on this webinar, and to be joined by yourself and my other colleagues, Corey and Deon. It's a real privilege. So thank you very much. So yeah, my sort of history in the contact center actually started off as in an agent capacity. So often when I do sessions, I ask people, so when you were growing up, did you see yourself sort of wanting to become a contact center professional? And obviously the answer is no. A lot of people, didn't view this as an option. But I think once you get involved in the contact center space, the kind of challenges that it presents and the kind of dynamic way in which we interact with customers, with suppliers, with agents, it makes this place, it's really an environment that kind of creates a lot of innovation and a lot of buzz and a lot of excitement. And obviously the technology aspect around that is very exciting. But having said that, I think there's a lot of factors that actually don't change in the contact center space, and things like, for example, like the challenges of trying to handle more customers with less cost, doing service faster with better quality, maximizing productivity but minimizing agent turnover. All those kind of things are relevant today, and they'll be relevant tomorrow. But I think the impact of technology around all of these challenges that we do face is in how we embrace that is the key to us moving forward. So I think yes, there are a lot of changes, but those changes are kind of addressing issues that contact centers have always had. And I think that the key is to try to understand, if we fix a particular issue, the returns on that will keep on returning for years down the line. I think that's quite key. Also, I want to sort of support Deon's view around the automation aspect and the artificial intelligence aspect of contact centers. So often see in contact centers a big opportunity that is being missed is the opportunity to embrace technology. So I still find a lot of contact center agents doing robotic kind of stuff on their conversations. And then the managers saying, try to do this as quickly as possible. And so that whole element, I think, is missing about a little bit. So I really think that the industry needs to automate with intent. So understand what is routine, what is predictable, what is script-based, and try and automate that as much as possible. But on the flip side, we need to really humanize with purpose. So when a human has an interaction with another person, then normally it needs to be around a persuasion, a discussion that influences, a discussion that teaches. We're dealing with emotions, and I think we really need to up our game in terms of the human aspects of the conversation. I think those two work together quite well. And then sort of my other sort of focus around the contact center space is how do we actually make decisions in terms of when to buy what technology? And you know, we actually think we're very good at making decisions, but sometimes we're not the most rational decision makers. And so one of the things that I try and highlight is the decision blind spots when we are making these kind of decisions around technology. So those are kind of the three sort of aspects that I think are quite important in our discussion around technology and the evolution of it going forward. Thank you.
I think, thank you, Hilario. You raise a very good point, and it's something that I've noticed in the last 6 months, but particularly in the last 3 or 4 months, exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, is a lot of organizations are really starting to take a really good long look at their platforms, their call center platforms, and particularly driven by the work from home, which we'll expand on just now. And so we see a number of inquiries coming in, looking for the holy grail, the new solutions. Right, Corey, you've also, I bring 3 veterans into our discussions this morning. Corey's a veteran of our industry, focusing on data analytics and more recently on speech analytics and the implications of that going forward in the CX environment. Corey, would you come in with your views on where we are and where we might be heading?
Rod, thank you. Just by kicking off to Hilario and Deon, it's a great pleasure to be with you guys in the panel, so thank you for that. I love something Hilario said, and I want to pick up on it, and that humanize with purpose. You know, I started off with my sort of opening game to be, for me, it's the age of intimacy. There's so much technology, and to Deon's point, you know, we're driving through efficiencies and effectiveness within the contact center space through the use of AI and technology. And all of this is going to make us incredibly efficient in the way we deal with things. But part of the efficiency, the opportunity cost, is we lose the intimacy. And as Rod alluded, and you make me feel very old with the term veteran, but I'm not, I am probably very old. The holy grail from an analytical perspective has always been this concept of how do we get intimacy, and COVID, I think, has brought that intimacy to light in 2 aspects, and it brought a whole different sort of aspect to the mix. In the past, it was always about customer intimacy. How do we understand the customer journey better? How do we understand the customer drivers, the customer motivations better? And analytics certainly help, but we've always had this dark data within the contact center and the actual conversations we've had with our customers. You know, we analyze the data to death, but we don't listen to all of the conversations. QA is not very efficient, so you can't actually physically, human ear, listen to every conversation. And COVID brought the mix to, you know, suddenly the agents are no longer sitting on our floors. So how do we bring that agent intimacy into the mix? And that, to me, I think, is going to define the way forward. In the one aspect, we are going to automate, we're going to optimize, and we're going to bring in efficiencies. But on the other aspects, we're going to start looking at ways to become more intimate. And intimacy is not throwing people at the problem. Intimacy is using technology in a way to sort of make up for the human elements around it.
Corey, thank you very much. And I think the points that have come through, and I'll go back to Deon's point about, you know, robotics, AI, etc. A very interesting question just come in on the chat line. Rajen John Thanks for that. We really appreciate it. Rejan's question is quite interesting. It says, with 4IR being expedited, AI, bots, analytics, etc., does it mean that agents become redundant in years to come? And will customer experience actually improve, or will it be done primarily just to save cost in the long run? So I'm going to ask Deon if you could comment on that. I know you're a proponent of automation, AI, bots, etc., but what about the agents? And then we're going to go back to Hilario to get the human perspective on it. Deon.
Great stuff, Regent. Thanks for that question, man. Fourth Industrial Revolution. Wow, what a great topic. We should have a webinar just on that. Yes, of course. I think what people need to realize is that artificial intelligence is here to stay. It's going to change the world. It's going to change customer experience. It's going to change the contact center. But it's not going to do it tomorrow. All right. Artificial intelligence is taking an evolution like most technologies. And even though today it's a big hype and everybody's talking about AI, AI is specifically in almost its infancy stage, if I could call it that. So artificial intelligence is evolving, it's growing, it's maturing. The way that it's starting to use things like machine learning, the way that it's starting to use natural language processing, all of those things are evolving and growing and expanding as we talk about. But today, as we stand now, artificial intelligence certainly is not capable of replacing a human or an agent at this point in time. What we are starting to see is that artificial intelligence are starting to drive components such as bots, where basic self-service functionality can be empowered. We're starting to specifically see artificial intelligence working with agents, empowering agents, providing agents with information and capabilities that helps them provide better service to the customer, better customer experience. Yes, artificial intelligence as a customer service tool, as a customer self-service tool, is definitely going to develop and evolve. But we don't see the replacement of agents pretty soon. And we certainly don't see them being replaced or just having contact centers with bots or AI-driven bots taking over. The artificial intelligence is going to support the contact center and the agents. And we're certainly seeing that agents will be moved into more, bringing back to Corey's point, more to the world where that quality of customer experience, that difficult scenarios to handle, the fact where personalization is a big thing, where certain customers want to speak to a live agent, we're still going to see that component happening. So yes, AI is going to change the contact center world and the agents world, but I don't see them replacing the human agent in the near future.
Great answer. Thank you very much. And I think let's just extend on that. Hilario, you are more involved in the operational side and optimizing contact centers. So your views on the role of the agents going forward, how do you see that progressing?
Yeah, I think more and more the role of the agent is going to be one that becomes more complex in dealing with more complex interactions. I think the days of where agents are fielding kind of queries where there's only one right answer should not be happening and should be happening less. And so I think the role of like AI and the like is I think there's twofold. I think primarily we're still very reactive based. So even in the AI space, we're always looking to use AI to assist in a reactive sense in terms of when the customer does phone, how can we help the agents give a much better answer much more quickly? So that's the one way of using. But I still think AI's got a role to play in terms of even preventing that interaction from happening in the first place. So now, how they say that like the best service is no service. So it's like, if there's a predictable event that the customer will phone, like for example, you will phone for your tax return, give the tax return before, but that doesn't take AI to do. But I'm just saying that those kind of instances will become more and more relevant. So what's left over then is what is the actual human interaction? And this is where training around or skills around handling different kinds of customers differently is vital. Handling like emotions, handling, how do you actually persuade? What are the elements? So like a field of customer experience or customer interaction is experience engineering. We actually engineer the experience so that we deliver a better human interaction. I think that that role of it will become more prominent. Because certainly I think the simpler, easier to answer interactions should all be mocked up by self-service and some kind of automation process.
Excellent, good answers on those ones. Right, I'm just going to switch over and share screen again, just before we go into the next part of the session. And I just really wanted to talk about, very briefly, our technology survey. As you can see on the screen there, it's essentially been put together by Deon and Hilario, who pooled their brain power, along with the guys over at Knowledge Executive. And it literally is a 5-minute survey. So I urge everybody to participate in it. I'll put the link up in the chat box in a few moments. But also after today's event, I will be sending a confirmation. I'll be giving you contact details of our panelists and also links to the recording if you wanted to share it with colleagues going forward. So that's where we are. I'm going to put the chat box. I'll put the link into the chat box. But going forward, though, I think let's just kill that. And I'm going to ask Deon, if you wouldn't mind addressing one of the questions that came out from one of our delegates, Greg Dales down in Durban. Nice to have you with us, Greg. And you threw in the question, I'm interested to hear about Omnichannel Solutions. Deon, I want to ask you on that one. You've been around every contact center solution platform for, what, 3 decades nearly, 2 anyway. So your new role as a totally independent of any products or platforms, what are you seeing happening there, and how is it going to impact here on us in South Africa, particularly in the context of the trend to work from home and the post-COVID environment? So over to you for a few moments.
Right, thanks, Rod. Well, yes, omnichannel has been a hot topic for quite a while. It's agreed, and I think it's a very valid question, because certainly we've seen in the industry and working with a whole host of technology providers that you get omnichannel and then you get omnichannel. Okay, so first of all, when you start looking at omnichannel in your contact center environment, make sure that omnichannel is in fact omnichannel, not just a flavor or a spin-off or a marketing hype for multi-channel capability.
Yeah.
And a big difference there, just in very short, and we're going to have a whole topic about that as well, is in omnichannel, when the customer engage with you across any one of those channels and start switching between those channels, that context of that conversation must follow that journey. All right. So in other words, when a customer engages with you on maybe WhatsApp, for lack of a better word, WhatsApp channel communication, there's some kind of chat history taking place. When that customer starts to move from web chat or from WhatsApp to web chat or to email or to SMS or to voice, that context of that conversation should move along with it, so that that conversation history is kept and that journey is sustained. So there's a lot of vendors and a lot of products out there that talks about omnichannel, and it's a marketing hype. If you look at the brochures, about the presentations, the sales pitches, it's all about omnichannel. But there's literally very few contact center products today that can truly do omnichannel. And I think the advantage we have is today, I think somewhere along the line, you know, when you talk about technology, you need to talk about, specifically in the COVID time, around cloud and cloud migration and adoption of cloud technology. The advantage we certainly have today as consumers of contact center technology is the fact that most of these new cloud technologies have been developed almost from scratch on a new base platform. And ever since the development of these cloud platforms, that omni-channel single platform all-in-one thing has been a key part of that development, which means most of the cloud technologies today certainly have got that capabilities. But that's a key thing. Omni-channel is there. It's important. You will not be able to deliver proper customer experience, proper customer service. You will not be able to deliver a proper digital transformation or digital strategy in your contact center if omni-channel is not part of that process. And on top of that, that omni-channel component must be properly managed with regards to the journey and experience on the journey across all those channels, and the way that you support and drive all of that in the background in order to provide proper CX.
Nice input. I think we should reserve that for our next webinar, our drill down webinar. We would just focus on what is true omni-channel and what are the best components to look at there. Corey, I'm going to ask you a question which has popped up several times from our delegates. is with cloud comes this question mark about securities, offshore, international, where is it being hosted, risks associated with it. And you've had some experience in that space and no doubt had that question thrown at you very often. What is your quick view of the security of cloud solutions in our environment?
Rod, it's a great question, and you're right. It's a topic that comes up all the time. I think there are two answers to it, and the first answer is around the stigma around cloud is certainly dying, and cloud is becoming more and more mainstream and more acceptable. I remember a couple of years back, you'd have the cloud conversation, and everyone would go, "No, we're an on-prem only client," and that conversation is certainly changing. But like with anything, reputation of the cloud provider, you don't want to fly by night cloud provider because they're cheap. You want to stick to the established ones, Microsoft, AWS, and the rest of them come to mind. But I would almost venture, and I said it to a client the other day, is specifically with the big three providers, their reputation, their business model is built around that security model. And I would almost put my hand on a block to go, AWS's security model is probably far more robust, complex, and complete than all of the South African financial services organizations combined, because one hack and they close down. Where, a company could survive a hack and there's reputational damage, where an AWS or an Azure, they would literally, after one hack, they won't be there. So with that in mind, yes, there's an element of leap of faith, but you've also got to have, trust that they would do it because of their deep pockets better than anyone else would, and more comprehensively. So I think it's a moot point, but it's a perception thing. It still needs to change over time.
Nice input. I'm just going through our participating delegates. I'm going to invite another veteran into our little discussion here for a quick comment. Henry McCracken, I'm going to ask you to join us briefly. Henry's been around, 25 years also in this industry. And I'd be very interested in your views on the move to the cloud. Henry, if you could keep it short, but I really appreciate your inputs.
Yeah, thanks, Rod. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to engage. So, yes, veteran, dinosaur, if you like, baby boomer. So I'm making my notes. So, I mean, the transition to the cloud, I think it's inevitable that it's going to happen this way. So again, as a technology provider where we sit today with my company, Smart Communications, is exactly that. So there's a couple of things that, we discussed or are listening to the panel in terms of, where this is moving towards AI, embracing technology, how do you know when to buy what technology, where, focus around intimacy, the quality, personalization, and of course, making the agent smart as well. So I think, as Deon said, a lot of organizations are building from the ground up. And I think, everyone's got that focus in terms of, legacy was always a case of, patching things together in terms of technologies that were springing up. And how do you actually put this whole CX platform together? And I think, by building things from the ground up, you actually take into consideration, number one, the third-party applications that you have to pull together. So try and incorporate that into the platform, build that out. And then, of course, the most important thing is to drive that through the cloud because, I think the dynamics of this whole world is changing in terms of work from home environments. And that's not going to go away. So, how do you manage people when they sitting in a home and working environment is, you manage that by technology. And building a robust application like the one we have, most certainly, putting that into the cloud, I think, that's going to satisfy the whole CX platform and where we're moving towards.
Good stuff. Excellent. Thank you, Henry. I appreciate your inputs on that. And I'm going to bounce this back to Deon. Deon, there's several of the questions coming in about the work from home. Now, you and I have had discussions on this over the last couple of months. You were intimately involved in the extremely rapid move from on-premise to a work from home environment. Very briefly, can you give us just a quick précis of what actually happened in the immediate lockdown, and how do you see work from home going forward from a technology point of view? And then afterwards, I'll come back to Hilario from an operational point of view and give you time to give some thought there, Hilario, on the human element of work from home. So Deon, a quick one on a bit of what you experienced in the immediate lockdown and where do you see it going?
Thank you, Rod. Yes, look, I can tell you that certainly in South Africa, a lot of customers or contact centers were caught off guard with the sudden lockdown of COVID and having to suddenly move a whole bunch of agents to work from home state. And it was quite clear. The contact center environments or the contact center businesses that had adopted cloud technology already, for them, it almost became a seamless exercise because in many cases, they had already some level of agents working from home. The way that cloud technology allows you to work from home with minimal impact and having limited IT technology and stuff required at home made it a lot easier. The guys that were still pretty much living in a legacy world with legacy equipment had far more challenges. It took them a lot longer and a lot more expensive exercise for them to get their agents working from home. And certainly even today, I mean, what are we, 120 odd days already in lockdown? There's still some contact centers out there that are struggling with voice quality issues, connectivity issues, not only all the bandwidth issues because of the technology not being able or prepared to be state-of-the-art and being able to work at optimal capability using the fancy compression, WebRTC, all this fancy technology you need in order to allow for things to work like that. So yes, cloud, if you're living in this state and the new world of work, even in the contact center, is going to be about cloud technology and making sure that the cloud technology allows you to work remotely with certain bandwidth limitations, because that's just the real world we live in at this point in time. And looking at the future, yes, we certainly engaged with a whole host of contact centers. And yeah, they see working from home and working from home agents as a new normal if they've got the right technology and capability of monitoring their agents, seeing what they are. And I think most of us in the industry got a massive surprise. I mean, there was certainly this general perception that agents working from home would be a disaster. They wouldn't be controlled. They wouldn't be able to self-manage themselves. And I think we got a pleasant surprise. And certainly technology is there to monitor those agents. When you're talking about agents, whether you're talking about back office home workers, through the technology such as Teams or whatever the case might be, if you really want to control and monitor and see what they're doing and how they're doing it, what they're typing, what they're copying, what the security risks are, the technology is there. But you still need the people to do that, and we got a pleasant surprise. I mean, most of the guys adopted it quite well. So yes, contact centers will gradually start moving into this adopting of more and more people, agents working from home. Certainly at this point in time, because of the investment in infrastructure and buildings and rental and stuff, it's not going to be that easy. But I think the moment you start seeing lease agreements change or being up for renewal, well, you'll start looking at how do we get smaller and start adopting this work from home thing moving forward. And that'll be part of that cost model right now, because still owning the big building and all the infrastructure and now suddenly wanting to work from home just increases your cost base. So those are the things and the models that people will start looking at. But the technology is there, the capability is there. And if you're adopting cloud, it's going to make the world a lot easier and a lot more cost effective.
Okay, I think that spins into two aspects of it. Hilario, from a consultant focusing on the operational aspects of contact centers, what is your observation of this work from home model? And Corey, so I'll give you time to think about it. After Hilario, just give us some inputs on how analytics aids and assists in monitoring, managing, and motivating in the work from home model. So first, Hilario, your experience would be very valuable.
Yeah, thanks, Rod. One of the kind of key sort of ideas that have come through in my sort of experience is a lot of the time we've been focused on the customer experience. So very focused on making sure that the customer is a great experience. And often we have not neglected, but we, to a much lesser degree, we haven't looked at the agent experience. So what is the experience for the agent, throughout the interaction? And so I think the working from home element that's been forced on us quite rapidly is forced us to think about how do we make this agent experience a lot more seamless. And so, you know, back in the day where agents had to like toggle through 5 or 6 different systems to get an answer that's often sort of asked of them, I think a lot of the way forward is about simplifying that user experience for the agent to deliver better service. So because now they're working from home, they might not have access to a support team lead or somebody to ask around. One of the key things that I think that I see coming through is how do we design the agent user experience to make their experience a lot more better. And I think one of the, I'm not a UX expert, I think one of the things that really sort of comes to mind is how do we minimize stress for agents? So I'll give you a couple of examples. How do we design forms, for example, that automatically prevent them from making a mistake? So, for example, if they enter an ID number and it's blatantly wrong, the system should be able to tell the agent that. I think obviously the automation and the virtual sort of assistance should be guiding the agents to, for example, control the pace of that call. You know, telling them exactly, this is what happens next. So it's basically having kind of a team leader supervisor there at home, because now we don't have that kind of support structure. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for technology to enhance the agent experience around that, making it easier, dynamic scripting and all those kind of issues. I think there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of innovation around that particular space that I'm seeing from where I am in terms of the agent experience working from home.
Okay, you raise a good point there, and Corey, I'm going to ask you in a few seconds, but an interesting question has just come through on the Q&A. Thanks, Nicolette. Nice question there. Nicolette's talking about the fact that agents working from home now are operating remotely without the call center vibe. But I'm going to suggest that one of our drill down webinars that will come up in the next few weeks, we'll get a panel together looking specifically at recruitment of the right type of person, because I'm quite sure that it's more the introverts who will thrive in the work from home environment. So let's look at that. Let's look at discipline. Let's look at motivation. Let's look at developing tenure. So I'm going to park that for now. But Nicolette, thanks for that. I think I'm going to ask you to maybe come in on that next webinar as well, because I really would value your opinions. Corey, back to you. Once again, it's about technology and how is the modern technologies, particularly the analytics, helping operators to manage, monitor, motivate, and keep the discipline going whilst driving cost reduction, customer experience. So over to you for a second.
Perfect. I want to pick up on something that Hilario had said around, I love the concept of agent experience. And I think it was something we took for granted until the agents were no longer under our noses and they're suddenly remote. So around analytics and work from home, Deon touched on it earlier, you can monitor and get insight into every aspect that the agent's doing, from what he's doing on the desktop through the use of speech analytics to what is being said in the conversation. But I want to take it in a slightly different direction, Rob, is in the sense that it's not about Big Brother. And I think if we looked at technology and the implementation of technology from a Big Brother perspective, we're going to completely miss the opportunity to learn and to improve both the agent experience as well as the customer experience. It's more around what is being said, how it's being said, what is being done, how it's being done, and how can we learn from that to do it better. And that to me is a big driver. I've been sort of drumming the speech analytics drum, as you know, Rod, for a while. And it's not around being sort of disciplinary and being able to see everything they do from a draconian perspective. It's more around looking for the opportunities. And I think we're at that golden age now where there's so many tools that we can get insight from, but we need to utilize those insights correctly. And the correctly is around what do we do, how do we do it today, and how do we do it better tomorrow, and how do we learn from that? So to me, that would be the key thing. Apart from that, you can see absolutely everything they do, touch and feel on the screen, but that's not what it's about. It's about the learning and the improvement.
Excellent. We're going to bounce something a little bit oblique at the moment. A couple of questions come in. Dobek, thank you very much for your question. I won't go into the detail of it, but Dobek's asking the question about how is the South African environment now with the global pandemic? How's our BPO industry faring? And what technologies do we need in place to be able to address attracting international business into South Africa? Deon, once again, you've had experience in migrating BPO customers into that space. What is your view on that?
Rod, thank you very much. David, yeah, look, I can tell you one thing, and I don't have all the stats and information, at my fingertips at the moment, but yeah, I've certainly been a member of PEPESA in the past. We've worked with PEPESA in the past, and PEPESA today, with other organizations, are certainly driving the promotion of South Africa as an offshore contact center venue, for lack of a better word, location. They are working extensively with the DTI and various government institutions. And I can tell you without a doubt that today, with the work that companies, organizations like PEPESA is doing with government, South Africa is rated as one of the top contact center offshore sites in the world. It's without a doubt. And it's by working specifically to your question around tax breaks, financial breaks, around discounts on telco connectivity issues. Remember, we're still one of the most expensive telco connectivity countries in the world. So there's a whole host of packages, incentives, and things in place today where we promote South Africa as an offshore destination, where we literally host on an annual basis a whole range of offshore contact centers and companies to promote South Africa as a destination. There's an annual roadshow taking place where we promote South Africa and tell them about the fantastic things that we are doing. We've even got call center bodies split into regions, whether it's Gauteng or KZN or Western Cape, whatever the case might be. There's in the background an immense and fantastic work being done by PEPESA specifically around promoting South Africa and making sure a lot of those value propositions is driven into the organization. And we've certainly got some fantastic logos and organizations already deployed in South Africa, providing services all over the world. And that's fantastically so, and with great success. In fact, I was in a webinar a couple of weeks back, specifically around COVID, and the way that organizations and BPO and offshore businesses operations were supporting COVID and the challenges and disruption that it caused. And there was a contact center company on that call that had contact centers in, I think, about 15 different countries. And they literally said that South Africa performed the best of all those countries with regards to the COVID lockdown scenario and how quickly we could adjust for the services. So there's no reason for us to stand back at all in that environment. And I can tell you now, there's some fantastic guys in PEPESA that can tell us a lot more, but go to their website, look at the reports, look at the research that they are doing. They are busy with some fantastic research around COVID and how we respond to COVID and also the after COVID scenario. And there's some fantastic information and stats to show you exactly what has been done, how well South Africa is performing in that environment.
Oh, that's great news. Thank you very much. Yes, in fact, I have heard fairly recently that even in the last couple of months, South Africa has attracted something like 5,500 new jobs into the BPO environment as a consequence of the comfort that international customers are feeling around the infrastructure, the technical resources, the consulting environment, and basically the good governance that we have in South Africa as well. So really great feedback. Thank you on that one, Deon. Hilario, we're coming up for the last 10 minutes or so on this session, but as an independent consultant in this space, what are maybe one or two of the questions that you are being asked more frequently now around the post-COVID environment or the work from home environment? The floor is yours.
Thanks, Rod. I think one of the questions that I get asked often is, is the sort of return on investment on any kind of technology. And And now, because of the kind of people are reviewing the operations, and I suppose one of the good things of a crisis like this is you don't want to waste it. So there's a lot of change that might have happened a year down the line that it's happening now, and because people are reviewing, and because people are reviewing things, the operations very sort of like quickly, but in a methodical way. A lot of the question I get asked often is, do I have a specific or return on investment on my projected investment in technology? So one of the questions that I get a lot is the ROI question. So in order to answer that, we've got to understand exactly what are the sources of value. We're not buying technology, like, for example, the old analogy, we don't buy a drill. We don't want to buy a drill. What we want is a hole in the wall. So we need to understand from a technology perspective, what is the value that it's going to be generating? So, so that to me, it's key. So it's understanding what is the super purpose of this technology. What was it going to do for you? So you investing in technology to do what? Is it to improve customer lifetime value, reduce churn? So we start having those kind of conversations instead of having conversations around, it's going to reduce my average handle time by maybe 2 seconds or 5 seconds. I mean, obviously that, the aspect of doing more for less is going to come into the mix. But we need to understand the whole sort of ambit of what are the drivers of value when you're investing in a particular technology. So that's certainly one of the questions that I get a lot is I need to change, I need to make my contact center better, but I'm not sure how to actually basically prove my value. And the problem is in a contact center is that your executives already think it costs too much, so they already think it's a cost center that's already bleeding a lot of money. So the idea of trying to invest more money into this engine is sometimes quite a challenging one to prove, but the case is there, and there's various levels of value that potential investment might have in improving your contact center.
In fact, you raise a good point, and I'm going to make a note of it for one of our drill down webinars. I think you and I have done a lot of work in that space before, is assessing and auditing contact centers. What I've been seeing is organizations rushing off, making bad decisions about new tech without having done the homework of really doing the groundwork of understanding the needs, the operational realities, sweating the assets, etc. So I'll make a note on that because I think that could be a really interesting webinar. Corey is sitting in your empty call center up there. Corey's call center is overlooking the sea down in Hermanus. I think many of us envy you there. Corey,
not much view today.
Yeah, it's a bit drafty, I believe. Yeah. The most frequent questions you're being asked at the moment that you are being asked to field. What's coming up on your agenda?
It's a better way to around, and remember, let's set the context. It would be for me around speech analytics. It's around, is there a better way to do the quality process? I think we've realized, and COVID and work from home has absolutely highlighted that the old way of doing sampling and 1 or 2, and if you're lucky, you get up to 5% sampling rate on your call recordings is simply just not good enough. There's too much that you miss. There's nothing that you can really quantify. And to Hilario's point is the value of, the ability to listen to every conversation for whatever purpose, whether it's from a quality perspective, whether it's from a compliance perspective, whether it's from just understanding what the customers are saying, is invaluable because we miss so much from it. So I'm seeing a lot of that around how do we do what we do today better, but better from an insights perspective, not better from a randomness perspective. And that to me is typically the most exciting of the conversations, and especially when they do the deployments. The insights they have and the stories they share is amazing. It's going from, having sort of not even half eyesight, having sort of seen, I often use the analogy, and I'm going to close off with that, is, Rod, and you're not allowed to comment. If you listen to, 3% of the conversation you had with your significant other or your children, you really, really know what's going on in their lives and what they're on about. and yet we manage our contact centers like that.
Okay. Yeah. No, very good point. Very good point. Right. We have an interesting group on our webinar today, and I see Rose Dupree, you've popped up there. Rose also is one of the founders of our industry. I think we all go back around about 30 years or more. Rose, I've made you live. Would you like to join us for a second? Are you there?
Good morning.
There you go. Got you. Caught you. Rose, welcome. When did you actually get into the industry? If I remember correctly, it was like in the early 90s or?
Was early 90s.
Early 90s. And nowadays, your company, you manage and focus on optimization, if I'm correct.
So a lot of the work we're doing is around strategic customer service and strategic service alignment. Because a lot of times what is defined at the CE level as customer experience does not translate further down the organization. And so it's really aligning all the way from the CEO to the agent. Do we have a common language around what customer experience is? And of course, there are different things happen at different levels. And then most recently, I've spent an enormous amount of time working on internal branding and internal brand management, which in the current climate is challenging at least. Because as so many of you have already said, we don't have our people in front of us right now. And so that managing that internal brand is critical and yet extremely difficult.
Excellent. It's a pity we didn't call you in a little bit earlier, but Rose, I'm going to invite you in on one of our focus.
With pleasure, yes, I understand. That's not the format for today, but more than happy to join another conversation.
That'll be wonderful. Thank you very much for your contributions there. Right, we're coming up for the 1 hour threshold. And gentlemen on the panel, the three of you, we have Jason Handel sitting down in Durban. Jason, I bring you in live. Jason is the regional director, sales director for Axtel headsets, and he's kindly donated a wonderful Axtel headset for us. And the prize is going to go to the most interesting question. So Hilario, Corey, and Deon, we've had some really fascinating questions coming up. So now's the time to make a decision. Anything in particular that's come up that you would like to address? Deon, the most interesting question.
Right, yes, yeah, you mentioned it's quite a difficult exercise. Look, I love the government question. That was great, but I think technology for me is always the top part. So I think the first question we got from Rajen is one of the key things, because the way that AI is going to change this world and what it's going to do to agents is always a hot topic. That would be my favorite.
I'd second you on that, Deon.
Huh?
Yeah, no, I would as well.
There you go. How's that?
Well, I think we've got a winner.
I'm going to bring in our sponsor, our prize sponsor, Jason Handel. Jason, you're live.
How you doing, Rod? Good morning to yourself. Good morning to the delegates, and good morning and thank you to the panel of experts for your insights. Obviously, as the prize sponsor, we're here just to add a bit of value to your session today. So I'm not going to take away too much of your time. Really, Axtel headsets has been in the country for about 5 years now through select distribution and system integrated channels. And we've recently taken up a very focused approach into the BPO and contact center space, providing these headset solutions into the marketplace, the contact center and BPO space. And really the name of the game for us is quality, build quality and audio quality. And I think Hilario also hit the nail on the head in terms of value. What exactly are you buying? And for us, you're not just buying a headset, you're buying a true tone, two-way communication between your agents and your customers. So I think well done, Rajesh, on winning your Axtel Prime MS. This is one of our high-end devices, HD noise cancellation with multifunction remote control, built from composite materials. You can literally throw this thing under a truck and it will not break. So we'll get your device in the mail to you shortly. Well done.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason. And thank you so much to Axtel for that wonderful prize. We're right on the hour now, so I'm just going to ask for wrap-ups. Corey, I'm going to work backwards, your wrap-up statement on this session that we've had today.
Wrap-up for me would be around, and let's bring in the technology thing. See technology as the great enabler for, and we have the opportunity now with work from home and COVID is to say, how can we do what we do smarter through the deployment of technology? And back to my earlier point is, as long as the motivation for the deployment is not around punitive and more looking at learning and the opportunity to move forward from there, I think it's going to hold great success.
Wonderful, thank you. Hilario, your wrap up.
Yeah, I think there's obviously this pandemic has brought a lot of change forward that might have happened in the future. And so I think, although there's all these things hanging up in the air, we need to sort of just focus, to me, on two key basics, and that is really automate with intent and then humanize with purpose. I think that to me still are the key levers in terms of managing the contact center using technology going forward. Thank you.
Excellent. Deon.
Thank you, Rod. I started with Gartner. I'm going to end with Gartner, if you don't mind. So one of the key things that Gartner mentioned in their CEO survey is that in this COVID/recession period, because that's pretty much what's happening at this point in time, the two key focus areas for CEOs is cost management focus, okay, which ties us back to Hilario's comment around organizations now more than ever looking at that proper, let's call it business plan, whether it's ROI, TCO, whatever the case might be. So that's a key thing. The second point that Gartner mentioned, or the second focus area, is that speed of digital transformation, which means by default, companies have to start investing in technology, whether it's a contact center, whether it's a business. That digital transformation and transformation per se is quite a key thing. And that's what we're seeing in the contact center. And that's a lot of those questions we're getting from customers today is, how do I transition or transform from my current legacy world, multi-channel, separate, disparate systems, to this new world of the contact center, where pretty much you're starting to look at the transition, whether it's CX transformation, whether it's contact center transformation, whether it's digital transformation, whether it's cloud transformation. That component becomes a key thing. And having to add that and show the value of that proposition in a proper business plan is quite key.
Excellent. Well, as we wrap up, I think we'll do just a very special thanks to each one of you, Corey, Hilario, and Deon, for participating, and also for the delegates who came in and helped us out on some commentary as well. Some really great questions coming through. Rajen, well done on winning the prize there. And thanks to Axtel Headsets. And thanks to Callbi Speech Analytics and to Francois and the team down in Stellenbosch there. Thank you for supporting this ongoing series of webinars. And as Deon and I mentioned a little earlier, we will be having these drill down focus sessions. And I'm going to be certainly inviting some of our panelists, not only our panelists, but some of our registrants as well, to come in and join us on that one as well. Lastly, please, I have put that link to the research into the chat line there. I will be sending it out in the follow-up to this webinar. Please, I implore you to get your CTOs to spend 5 to 10 minutes just filling in that survey. We'll share the findings of that in a future webinar in a couple of weeks' time. And I'm sure we're going to find it absolutely fascinating and some really good guidelines there. So thank everybody, and thank you all the delegates for spending the time with us today. We've had over 75 registrations, and just looking at the list there, at peak we had around about 45 people joining us. So really great. Thank you so much. And we look forward to welcoming you on our next Contact Center Showcase webinar. Thank you all. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Everyone. Thanks, Rod.